So the first thing, we should copy all these elements. We should copy this up to this level, the level 64. And here we have to create the roofs, and the roofs are those pyramids. I don't think we have time to do this today, so we will design the facade, and then we will copy all these. We will stack different floors. But we have to analyze the facade of that building. So this is the Yale Art Gallery facade. Okay, so this is the Yale Art Gallery. I always mistake one. It's the British Art Gallery in Yale. This one, okay? So there are two buildings that are close to each other, and they are both by Louis Kahn, but they are slightly different. Okay, so this is the facade that we're going to do. It's okay, so you see that the first floor, it doesn't have this kind of envelope. So this corner is open, and here we have like a glass envelope on the first floor. But on the second floor, we have this detail, and we have different variations. Okay, so here you see that we have a window that it's half that part, and here we have this metallic facade, or here we have something blind without windows, or here we have this. Okay, but and then inside, what we have is a plywood or a wood element. Okay. The important things here is that the architect wanted the structural element to be exposed. Okay, so we are not hiding the concrete structure from the outside. So we want this to be exposed. And then find the detail. Okay, and then you can see that this is like divided into different parts. We have 1, 2, 3. Okay, and then this window, it takes 2 modules, and then this module is the same as this one, or this window takes 1 module. Okay, so there is always, so there are different variations. So we're going to design this, and then we will insert different windows. But the idea is that we can remove one of the modules and insert a window, or we can remove this and insert a window there that goes from the ceiling to the top. So there are different variations, but working with the same idea, with the same detail. So you see that we have the exposed concrete, and then we have the steel, because that's steel. We have 3 elements, and here we have a window. So this is what we are going to try to do now. And indoors, well, you see that all these walls are made of wood indoors. Okay. So we're going to try to design something like that. And then for the roof, we will have those skylights. Those are the pyramids, and those are the skylights. Okay. So we are going to model the facade and then the roof with the skylights here. So let's do it. So before copying this, and then, okay, I'm going to design the facade, and then I will copy that. But that is, okay, I have to copy one because this is the first floor, and the first floor we have curtain walls. So we start with this facade on the second floor. So I copy this. Remember that you have to remove constraints, and I'm copying all these elements here. Go. Okay, so we have 3 floors. The first floor is different. The basement, it doesn't have any windows, so we just have the concrete wall. Then the first floor, we will have a curtain wall. And then on the second floor, we start with this facade. Okay, so first we have to make this wall. So we're going to go to structure or to architecture, doesn't matter. And we can work with walls. And we are going to select a basic, let's select this exterior brick on CMU, but we're going to change it, okay? And then let's edit type. So when we edit type, we have to duplicate, and this is the Yale art gallery wall. So just write down a name that you can remember. And here, this is what we have by default. So I selected this because I want the core boundary. The core boundary is where we have the structural element. It's if we were going to calculate this, that matters. If we are not calculating anything, well, but get used to that. When we have a core boundary, means that we have the structural element here. And for the structural element, I'm going to select concrete masonry units. And concrete masonry units, I want this because this is 7 inches and 5/8. So that means that it's an 8-inch or kind of an 8-inch concrete masonry unit. Again, what are concrete masonry units? Concrete masonry units are these, are elements that are hollow, and we have different thicknesses. Okay, so so that's the concrete masonry unit, and we have different. Let me see if I can find dimensions. Okay, so this is it. So you see that we have the 4-inch one, the 6-inch, 8, 10, 12, and I don't know what this is. Okay, but usually we have this 4, 6, 8, 10, and 12. So we're using this 8 one. It's not 8 because it's 8 and it's 7 and something more. And this is not 6. It's 5 and 5/8. Why is that? Because when we have the finish, then we end up having 8 inches. Okay, but these are the standard concrete masonry units or CMU that we can find. Okay, so it's 4 inches, 6 inches, 8, 10, and 12. Why do we have this? Well, 4-inch is not something structural. It's just the envelope. 8, 10, and 12, we can have some structural features. Also here in this building, we don't have the concrete masonry unit. It's not something structural because we have the structural columns and beams. Okay, so the load of the beams is not resting in the wall. It's resting in 2 different columns. But anyway, so in this case, I want you to use this 8 and the thickness of this masonry unit is not 8, it's 7, 5/8 inches. Okay. So that's it. And since this is the solid element, it should be between the core boundaries. Then what do we have inside? Inside we have metal furring, and we have a gypsum wall board. Okay, I don't want this. I'm going to change it. So inside, I want you to use a thermal air layer, and here I want a thermal insulation. So if you type insulation, we have this rigid. Okay, you can use this one. And the thickness, let's use 6 inches. Okay, because probably this is not the actual detail that we can have, because that building was built in the 70s, and in the 70s, energy efficiency was not a concern, but now it is. Okay, so we're going to create a good detail from the thermal point of view too. So we have rigid insulation, 6 inches indoors, and then the finish is not gypsum board. It can be, it's a wood or timber. What kind of wood we have here? We have plywood or softwood. Okay, so let's use this softwood. We have to define if it's pine or cherry or oak or whatever, but we can select this one. And what's the thickness? Let's say 1 inch. Okay. So this is the detail. We have the concrete masonry unit, then rigid insulation or insulation indoors, 6 inches, and then the soft lumber or the finish, which is wood, as we can see here. Okay, and then outdoors, what do we have? So outdoors, out of the core boundary, we have the membrane layer. Okay, that's it's not relevant in terms of thickness, because you see that this membrane layer, damp proofing, it's 0. So it doesn't have a thickness, but it has an effect from to save or to protect the building from the water or the moisture. Okay, so we can keep it, but as you can see, it's 0. So it doesn't have a membrane. It's something that it's so thin that we can't assign a thickness to it. And then we have a rigid insulation, 3 inches. Let's use 2. And then we have an air layer here. So let's make it 2 inches too. And finally, the finish, it's not Greek common. I want this to be steel. So we have stainless steel, we have steel. Okay, I don't think this Louis Kahn is using stainless, so let's use steel. Okay, and this is like 1/2 inch. Something thin. Okay, so let's check this. We have the structure, concrete masonry unit. We have rigid insulation inside, the soft lumber inside. And then here, this membrane, rigid insulation, 2 inches, air 2 inches, and finish 1/2 inch of steel. Okay, so now on level, okay, we have to work on level 27 because the first floor is going to be different. So we are going to work on level 27. So open level 27, and we are going to place the wall, but we're going to place that wall between these 2 columns, here and here. And it doesn't show up. Does it show up in your? Yes, no. Okay, if it doesn't show up, or if it shows up, it's because of the discipline. Okay, so by default, we are working with a structural discipline. In a structural discipline, we only see structural elements. If we want to see other elements, we have to change to architectural. And if we go to architectural, this will appear. But here you see that we have the wall, but we don't have the layers. We have to go here, the detail level, and we have to use fine. Okay, so if we do this, we have different layers here. Okay, so here we have the wall with different layers. I don't want to cover the columns because the concrete is exposed. Okay, so this wall goes from this point to that point, but it doesn't cover the wall. So I can't do this. For example, if I'm working with walls, I don't want to do this, because if we create a wall like that, it will cover the structure, and the structure won't be exposed. So we don't want to do that. Okay, so let's work with this wall that goes from this face of this column to that face of that column. And now we need to understand what we want here. I see that even indoors, we have exposed concrete indoors. Okay, so I hope that Louis can doesn't turn over in his grave, but I'm not going to do this. Okay, so I'm going to hide this exposed concrete indoors for the sake of energy efficiency. Okay, because if I do this here, we will have a wonderful thermal breach. Thermal breach is when we interrupt the thermal insulation, then we have a thermal breach, and that will give us a lot of problems. Okay, so I'm going to cover this with thermal insulation, with 6 inches of thermal insulation, which I think that will be more than enough. And how can I do that? If you see here, this is the interior finish, then we have the thermal insulation, and then we have the concrete wall, the concrete masonry unit. So I'm going to move, and I'm going to make the concrete masonry unit. So I want to line up that edge of the concrete column and the concrete masonry unit. And then the 6 inches of thermal insulation will cover the concrete column. Okay, and now here we have the wood. Okay, so that's what we are going to do. And but here, we have this. Okay, so I'm going to change slightly that detail, and I'm going to add more thermal insulation. Remember that here we have the concrete masonry unit, then we had 2 inches of thermal insulation, 2 inches of air, and this is the steel. But I want this to be like, I want to move this forward. So I want, because I think in this facade, the steel, you see that it's not aligned with the concrete here. Okay, so there's like a gap and we have this shadow. So I'm going to move this steel farther. So what I can do is to add more thermal insulation. It doesn't do any harm. So I'm going to edit type again. And I'm going to add, instead of 2 inches of thermal insulation, let's add 4 inches. Okay, and now move this to here. Okay, so that's fair enough. So this is the thermal insulation layer. Then we have air, and then there's a gap between the concrete column and the exterior steel layer. Okay, so that's good. Okay, if we copy this detail here, we have the wall, and here we have the exposed concrete. But as I told you, we have to cover this with thermal insulation so that we don't have the thermal breach here. So how can we do it? And this is something very interesting that we can do with Revit. We can create layers, but as you can see, this is the same wall, and we don't have control of layers. So if we extend the wall, we extend the whole wall. But what I want is to extend different layers. I don't want to extend the concrete masonry units because we have here the concrete column, but I want to extend this thermal insulation here and that thermal insulation there. So if I want to do that, I have to click here and I have to create parts. Okay, so in modify walls, I have this symbol here, this icon, it's create parts. So if we click on it, now each layer, we can control each layer. Okay, so this is the thermal insulation, this is the concrete masonry unit, this is the outdoor thermal insulation, and this is the exterior finish. So what we wanted is to extend this thermal insulation up to this grid line. So you have to click here, show shape handles. So if you click here, now we can extend this layer here. And in this wall, I will do the same. Create parts, select the thermal insulation, show shape handles, and we do this. Okay, so now this is what we want. We want to cover this column with thermal insulation inside, and we want to get this concrete exposed to outside. Okay, so we do what the architect wants outside, and inside we apply the energy efficiency because yeah, so we cannot do that. We can't have thermal breaches in our buildings. It's something that it's not allowed anymore. And then if we want to cover this with wood, I select this one, show shape handles again, and move it here and move it there. Okay, so now I have a detail in which we have the concrete column. This is thermal insulation, and wood, and wood. Okay, so that's very useful because we can, if you're not zooming in here, if you're not working with details, it doesn't matter. But if you work with details and if you want to specify how to solve this, okay, so that we want to expose the concrete to the outdoors and then we want to solve the thermal breach here, we have to do it, okay? What else? Well, what does it look like here? So this is indoors. And this is outdoors. Okay, outdoors, what does it, okay. So here you see that we exposed the beam, we exposed the column, but we also expose the beam here. So I will go to this and okay, so here you see that we have created parts, but probably I should have done this before because now with the parts it's more difficult. Let me go. Okay, I'm going to create a section here. So view section. So that's section 2. I don't see the wall because I'm in the structural discipline. So I change to architectural. I go to find detail, and now we find here the wall. You see that in the section view, I can I have the wall, okay, but and I don't have parts. But on the other hand, in the 3D view, I have parts, but I don't have the wall. Okay, so I have parts, but I don't see the wall here. Well, that's weird. So probably in the section, I do have the wall, so I can drag the wall here up to this level because I want to expose the concrete column. Okay, so now I have done this. And I have to do the same thing with that wall. So I have to move this section here. And now from this view, I can drag it down. Okay, so now in the 3D view, both elements are so we expose the concrete column, the concrete beam, and okay. So now I want to insert a window. But first, I need to create this. So where was the detail? Okay, here. So look at this one. Look at the blind element. Okay, so let's do this one. So you see that we have divided, this is the concrete slab, no, it's concrete beam. And then we have 1, 2, and 3. Okay, and here we divide this in half. And then we can open this window, but the modules are always the same. Okay, so we have to create this module. We have to divide this into 3 parts vertically and 2 parts horizontally. Okay, and then you see that we have different panels. So I want to create those panels in 3D. It's not just drawing a line. I want to create independent elements with different panels, with different steel panels. We can do that in Revit. Okay, so first, now we have to use the elevation. So I'm working on the north elevation. So I'm going to look at the north elevation. And then on the north elevation, here we have it's structural again. So make sure that it's architectural. Now we have the wall here and the wall there, and we don't have any walls here because that's the first floor. If we make it shaded, I think it's clear. So here we have the wall on the second floor. We don't have a wall on the first floor. And we have to divide this into 3 parts. And we have to divide this into in half. Okay, so I'm going to use reference planes. So if you go to architecture and work with reference planes, I'm going to create a reference plane just here in the middle. And now this is the most difficult part for me is to name things. So naming things, it's a pain in the neck. I don't have any children that I know of, but if I had like 7 children or something like that, what would I do? I don't know. I know so many names. So with this, it's the same. Because when we're working with a lot of reference planes, there's a point in which we have to select the reference plane from a list, and we need to give them right numbers. Okay, so I don't know. This is vertical. I will name this reference plane as, because if I'm working between 1 and 2, so I will name this 1, 2, mid. Okay, because this is between grids 1 and 2, and it's in the middle. And now I want to create 3 reference planes here. No, 2 more, because I need to divide these into 3. Okay, so let's do it. Let's go to architecture, reference plane. And I'm going to do this one. And this is, we're in level 27. Top. You can use other names, eh? Okay, so I'm very bad at naming things. And then I'm going to place this one here, and this is this is 27 top, and this is 27 bottom. But now I need to make these distances the same. I'm going to use annotate, linear, no, annotate, sorry, align. And then I'm taking these dimensions, they're all different. So I click here, EQ, and it doesn't work. I'm going to do it again. Dimensional align, 1, 2, 3, EQ. remove constraints. Doesn't work. Okay, so if it doesn't work with reference planes, I'm going to do it with a line. I'm going to go to architecture, model line, and which grid I am working with. Let me see. I'm working with grid A. Okay, so in north elevation, I'm going to draw a line. I'm going to draw it on grid A. Okay, and I just want a line here. Make it wireframe, and this is what we have. So I'm going to do it with lines. I'm going to do this line and this line here, and I'm going to use annotate aligned again. So this is the first distance, the second, the third. I click EQ, and now with lines it works. It didn't work with reference planes, but it works with lines. And now I have to select align, and I align reference planes to this. And now I can delete all the lines. Okay, so do you know how to do this, or do you have trouble doing this? Good. Over there, is it any? If you need any help, let me know, because that's very important. If we don't have this correctly, then we're in trouble. Because everything is based on these modules. So we have to, it doesn't look nice if the lines don't have the same distance between them, if this middle line is not in the middle. So those are small details that those details matter. Okay. So now we have to insert a window. Let's do this detail, for example. Okay, so if we want the blind one, we already have it, but I want to create a window like this. So this window, again, you see that it's lined up with the column, and it gets up to this middle line here, and then it goes up to the top. Okay, so the size of the window is these two modules. So I'm going to take this distance, 7 feet and 2 inches, and that distance, 9 feet and 6 inches. So I want the window with these dimensions. So I have to create the window that I want. So I have to go to architecture, a window, use these fixed windows, because I think this is a fixed element. You can't open this window. It's just a fixed window. It can't be opened. So we need this fixed window, and we have to edit type. And now we have to create a window with these dimensions. I duplicate, and this is 9, 6 times 7, 2. And now I have to change the dimensions of the window. And dimensions of the window, I think it's this. So we have the rough width. So here I'm going to type 9 feet and 6 inches. Oh, interesting. Okay, so this is not the window that I want. and I want to edit type, and I can't change the window. What? Let's do it again. Window. Oh, because I have here dimensions. Okay. Sometimes it's different. Sometimes I have to change dimensions in edit type, and sometimes I can change dimensions here in the properties windows. So if I select this and I change the height here is 7 feet and 2 inches, and the width is 9 and 6 inches. There you go. And now we can line up this here and this there. I don't like this. Yep, probably you see what happens, that I am inside the beam. It's because probably those are internal dimensions and I need the external dimensions. Okay, so you see that the height and the width have changed. I don't know why. It was 9 and 6 inches. Oh, yes, I know what happens. Because I have lined up this, and now I have to line up this one. Okay, and now that one. Okay, so now it's perfect. So now it's 7.2 and 9.6, but I have to line up all the. Okay, so we have a window. Let's go to the 3D view, and I have this window here. Let me try to insert a window on this. You see? Can you insert a window on the 3D view? I can't. You did. Why can't I insert a window here? Because here I have parts. I don't have the wall. So if I don't have the wall itself, I can't insert a window. So in this elevation, I do have the wall and I don't have parts. Okay. Well, sometimes it happens, and sometimes you can't, but don't get frustrated. So if in the 3D view you try to insert a window and you can't, this is because on the 3D view you only have parts. Probably there are some hidden elements, but they are not hidden. That's weird. Okay, so we should have the wall here, and we don't have the wall. Oh, because we're in the structural discipline and we need the architectural. Okay, so that's why. Okay, so now if I'm in the architectural discipline, I can insert windows here, you see? Okay, so be careful with that, because depending on the discipline we're working with, we have the walls or we don't have the walls. If we have parts, we can insert a window. We need the wall itself. So we need to activate both the wall and the parts so that we can insert a window. Okay. Well, we have this, and what else do we need now? We have created parts here, and we want to divide this part, the exterior steel layer. We want to divide this into, or we want to apply these divisions that we have here. Okay, so let's go to the 3D view. Let's select only the steel frame or the steel finish. And we can click here, divide parts. So if we click divide parts, then we can use intersecting references, this option here. And now levels. No, I want to use reference planes. So if I select all the reference planes that I have created, I apply and click OK. And you see that I have different parts. So I have divided this into different parts. But the good thing now is that each part is independent. If I want to modify the height or the width of this part, I can. Okay. It's not only that I have created the lines. I have created independent elements. Or if you want to make it thicker, you can. Okay, so that gives us a lot of possibilities. So we are done with this. Basically, we have a window here, and we have divided this into different parts. So this is what we wanted to do. What about this one? If we want to divide this one, these two reference planes are okay. So we can use them because you don't have to extend those reference planes there, because in theory the reference plane it's something that it's infinite. But we need another middle line there. Okay, so if that was a 1, 2 mid, then if I create another reference plane here, okay, here we have the midpoint. So I can rename this, so that would be 2, 3 mid. So I don't think we have to move it upwards. As long as we have the reference plane here, that's fine. But now if we want to divide this element, we have to divide parts. We have to use intersecting references, reference planes. So now that's important. We need the right, so we can use the 27 top and bottom, but now we need the 2, 3 mid, because this doesn't work. Okay, so if we select these 3 planes and apply, it works. So now I have created this blind element there. Okay, so now if this is a corner, okay, so this is a facade, and this is the another facade. So in this building, you can see that well, the facades they look the same. So I think the difference it's in the levels. No, even each facade is different. So you see that we have windows here. So we remove the second module, and then we insert windows here. Or here we have a whole window. So I want you to use different options for different facades. So if we have always the same divisions, it will be boring. Okay, so I think we have to create like different patterns, and then we can copy these patterns, and then the facade will look much nicer. So I want you to try 4 different things. Okay, so one of the things is this. Another one is the blind one without any windows. And then we can try other windows here at the top, or a window here in the middle. Okay, so let's repeat all the process again. So we are in level 27. Here we have to insert a wall. This Yale Art Gallery wall. From this point, to this point. Be careful with that, you see? So we don't want that to happen. So be careful because we don't want that connection. So you see that if we do this, it will immediately connect that. So if we don't want it, it doesn't matter, because that's why we can work with parts. Okay, so we can move it, but the minute I touch these two elements, then Revit does this. It's great that Revit can do that, but we don't want to. So probably in this case, we can work with parts or I can move this in this direction. I can move this in this direction. And then does it work? No, doesn't. Okay, so I can create parts here. And then I can move it here. I can move it there. Then this one here. This one there. And this one here. Okay, because we want the exposed concrete column there. And then I can do this. Okay, now another wall here. But we have to line up, we have to move this because the concrete masonry unit has to be here. And now I want to select all parts. And I want to move it here. Interesting. Okay, so when you have parts, you can't move the parts. You need to move the wall. And for some reason, I can't select the wall here. Is it because it's hidden? No, it's because I don't have the wall anymore. Okay, so I have to undo. And before doing all this with the parts, I need to move the wall. Here. Okay, and then I can do all this. So I'm going to go to architecture wall. Put it here. Move. Here. And now I can divide this into parts. And I can move them. There you go. Okay, so now from the 3D view. Oh. What elevation is that one? It's the west. So on the west elevation, spectral. Why don't I see anything? Okay. Look at this. I don't know if that happens to you, but if sometimes you open the west elevation and you don't see the building, there might be two reasons. First reason, because the west mark is outside the scope box. Okay, that can be one of the reasons. The second reason, if you click here, you see this is the limit. So you only see from this arrow up to this dashed line. So you have to extend that dashed line beyond the building. And now in the west elevation, you can see it. Okay. So why do I want this? Because I want to line up the height of the wall with the beam, and the same thing here. Select the wall, select the beam, and line up the wall there. And now on the 3D view, that works well. I made a terrible mistake, because you see that in this wall, the outdoor finish is a steel, but in this wall, it's upside down or inside out, I don't know. So we have to change it, okay? So we have to change the order of the layers. So I click here, and now I change the order of the layers, and now the steel is outside. But now it has moved, and I want to move it back here. Okay, so those are small details that make your life miserable with Revit. But, well, you have to bear with it. Okay, so now we have this corner, and I want to divide this into different parts, and I want to insert different kind of windows. So let's do it. Now I have to work on the west elevation. So for the west elevation, I'm going to need those reference planes. I can use them, okay, because they are the same reference planes, and that's fine. But I need a mid reference plane here, so one in the middle. So I have to go to architecture, reference plane. I have to do this. And what's the name of that? This is AB mid. Okay. So now if you want to create a window that if we want to create a window that is that has this dimension, let's take this aligned dimension. So this is 9.2, and this is, or maybe I don't need it. I'm going to insert a window here, and let's see if lining up works. Yes, it works. There you go. Okay, so now we have created a window like this. It's only one module. And I have to divide this. I select the steel, divide parts. No. Intersecting references, reference planes. And now I have to select the 27 top and bottom and the AB mid. Apply. And now I have divided all these elements here. Okay, so the next one is up to you. Use your imagination. And let's create a different module here. Okay, so this is half and 1 2/3. This is half and 1/3. So here you can use something different. So these are the facades. And again, we are. So this is more than, so we are above the average doing this. It's not just defining layers of a wall. People can do that, but we are creating parts and then we are dividing the parts. So we are creating these partitions that give some quality to the detail. So it's not just a wall. What is this material? Brick or whatever. So no, we're creating something different. The same thing we can do inside. Okay, so if here we have this plywood or no, it was wood or whatever. Okay, so this internal finish. So in this internal finish, let's try to do something more. I want a picture from other. Well, this is the art gallery. So as you can see, indoors, it doesn't matter because there are a lot of pictures or paintings with frames and all that stuff. So we don't see the actual material inside. Okay, so here we have different options. Yeah, so probably this can change. Okay, so depending on the exhibition or depending on the paintings, they can rearrange these things and they can make something different. Okay, so let's save the file. And basically, are we done with this? Let's add something else, okay? Because now the issue is, how do we? Yeah. So remember that detail. We had the concrete masonry unit, then we have thermal insulation here, and then we have the air gap, and then after the air gap, we have this steel. Okay, that's fine, but it's not complete. Okay, because we have thermal insulation and the air gap, and this layer is floating here. Well, this can happen. So we can have a floating steel layer. It's impossible. So we have to fix that steel layer to the main structural element, and the main structural element here is the this concrete masonry unit thing. So how can we do it? Okay. This is it. Okay, so this is basically what we need. You see that we have the masonry unit, the concrete masonry unit here. Then we need some structure that is attached to this concrete masonry unit, and then that structure holds the external finish. And then we have the thermal insulation here. Okay, so when we are working with this kind of facades, it works always the same. So we have the structural element. The structural element is the wall, the concrete masonry unit. We have some metallic structure or aluminum structure that is fixed to the wall, and then the external finish, something very thin, and it's fixed to those structural elements. So we're going to do something like that now. So every single detail that you can find, it's always the same. Okay, so this can be concrete masonry unit, or it can be brick. Then we have something that is fixed to this element. Okay, so here we have this metallic, and then the finish is fixed to these mullions, to those mullions that are hidden. Okay, so this can be marble in this case, or it can be steel, or it can be aluminum. But we always need this structure that is fixed to the structural wall. And then, yeah, so we have all these connections. So there are different details, and each manufacturer has its own detail, but the philosophy behind this, it's always the same. Okay, so we have something fixed to the wall, then we have a vertical element, and then the finish, it's fixed to the vertical element. So let's try to do it on a 3D view. And now we have to understand the facade that we are working with. Okay. So it seems that if we want to fix this panel to that structure, at least we need two elements. We need a vertical element here, and we need another vertical element there. And then we can evolve this steel facade to that vertical element. We can have three. It depends on the weight of this. I don't know, maybe here with two of them would be enough. So let's do it. We are going to go to the plan view, level 27. And I'm going to build, this is the concrete masonry unit, this one. Well, before doing this, I'm going to show you another feature that might be interesting. If we want a color code for materials, because these hatches are confusing, we don't know what we are doing, I'm going to select, this is the thermal insulation, for example. So if you right click and you go override graphics in view by category, on the cut pattern, because we are cutting this, I'm going to make this solid. And when we are working with thermal insulation, it's worldwide. If we have something yellow or yellowish, it stands for thermal insulation. So if I do this, okay, cancel. And I have to do by element, not by category. But again, solid, color, and apply. So that's the thermal insulation. Okay. And then we can do it the same. Override by element, cut pattern, solid, yellow. Okay, so now I think it's clear that we have the thermal insulation, but we have thermal insulation outdoors too. So can I select this and this at the same time? No, apparently I can't. Okay. Let's see if it works. Override graphics in view by element, cut pattern, solid, yellow. No, I have to do it one by one. Okay, so now in this corner, it's clear what the thermal insulation is. Now the concrete masonry unit. Okay, so we can do this, override graphics in view by element, and we can make something grayish. Okay, So now we will improve the quality of the details, but now to clarify ourselves, so what the thermal insulation is and what the concrete masonry unit is, I think this can be enough. Okay, so I'm going to insert here, or I'm going to create here an element that holds that external thing. Okay, so I think the easiest way to do that is to create like architecture component model in place. So I'm going, I think there's something like railings. Okay, so we have railings. And I'm going to create by extrusion, I'm going to create a shape. Usually the shapes are always something like this. Okay. And now I'm going to apply an offset. And this offset 1 foot, no, it's like 1/8 of an inch. And we have to go inwards like this. And now I have to trim. And we have to close it. And when we have a closed loop, we can click OK. And now on the 3D view, if we make it wireframe, we can see what we are doing. Okay, so you see that we have created this element here that it's connected in the plan view. So this element is connected to the concrete masonry unit. We can bolt it here, and at the same time we can bolt the external pin to that element. So if we want to make it, we can override graphics in view element, and the cut lines, we can assign like a weight of 6. And if we do this, whoop, it's terrible. Okay, so we'll do that later. But the thing is that by using this option, thin lines or not thin lines, we can assign different thickness to different parts of the detail. Okay, let's go into, I don't know, if I assign thicknesses, I have this horrible and terrible thing, but probably it's because of the scale. Okay, so here I'm using a 1/8 scale. If you make that scale bigger, let's say 1 to 1 foot, now things are different. So this is what I wanted to do. Okay, so here I have this element. I used 6, probably it's too much. Override graphics in view by element. So let's make it 4. Okay, so that looks better. Okay, so again, this is some advanced feature because here we can see different things. Okay, so the structure element is the most important one, so that's why it has a thicker line. And then this is something important, so I can make it like hatched in black like this. So this is a solid element, but it's not structural. Okay, so it's a structural element to hold this, but it doesn't bear the weight of the building. It just bear the weight of this external finish here. Okay, I think it's interesting. And now, once I have created that element, I can mirror. And if I select that mirror line, there will be another one here. Okay, is there another one there? Well, not really. You see that this one doesn't go, it doesn't have to go through the window. So I can move it down and I can interrupt this here, because here I have only this element and the window doesn't need this secondary structural element. But I need another one there, okay? So if I go to wireframe, I select this and I mirror. I can do it. I need to do it through the elevation. So I have selected this. And now I can go to this midpoint. And there's another one here. And now if I select this one, I can mirror. And I need another one there. Okay, so now I have this structural element here, that element there. So it holds the okay, so I have this structural element and that one. And you can tell me, why are we doing this if we don't see that element? Well, that's a wonderful Revit feature, because if we want to see different layers of this envelope, I can always select the parts. I can use these displaced elements, and then I can move it in this direction. What happens with Revit now? Okay, so this is an air layer, but this air layer, it's a solid element, but it's air. So I can always exclude part. So if I exclude part, so the next thing I have to do, okay, I have to hide the wall. So if I hide the wall, now I can see this element here. And this is the thermal insulation. So the thermal insulation, I can change the color. Now it's not cut, it's the surface pattern, because I'm not looking at this as a cut element, but I can use the same color. And so now I have this, which is the steel, and here I can see that element. I'm going to exclude and probably nope, this is not the layer that I want to select. Whoop. you see that we have behind, we have this element. Store. Okay, so this is it. By displacing elements and by moving this, I can have an idea of different layers of this wall. Okay, so here I can see this structural element that holds this, and I can see the thermal insulation, and I can see this. If I keep doing this with different layers, now I can have another thermal insulation layer there. Because what is this detail? We have the concrete masonry unit. This is the concrete masonry unit. We have exterior thermal insulation, which is this yellow layer. We have an interior thermal insulation, and then we have the steel plate there. What does it look like if we work with shaded element? Oh, maybe it looks nicer. Okay. Well, we will improve that detail. I just want to show you what we can do with this. Okay, because if we work with this element, we can show all the layers that make up a wall, and we can have this kind of details. Okay, so in this detail, we see everything. We see the concrete masonry unit. We see the thermal insulation. This is the exterior finish. That's the structure that holds this, and we have all the materials here. We will work more on that, but so far we have everything we need. So we have a wall, we have to create different layers, then we have to create parts. With parts, we can work with different layers by showing the shape handles, and then we can divide parts. So if you want different panels, so you can divide these parts, and by using the extrusion or the model in place, we can have these elements in 3D. And well, from the construction, this is what we need, okay, because things are not floating. And now if we add this, we can always use a path. Okay, so that's another thing, but override graphics in view, pattern. Yes, so these auxiliary lines are useful because it helps you understand that this comes from that part of the. Anyway, we'll keep working with this. I just wanted to show you today what to do, but that's the end of the assignment. Remember that you have to fill this one with a different pattern, and that's it.